Have you ever poured your time, money, or emotional energy into someone only to watch them turn around and stab you in the back? It's a brutal, isolating feeling. You gave them your all, and their reward to you was betrayal. But here's the hidden truth. You're not naive, and you didn't do anything wrong. You just stumbled upon a dark psychological law that Friedrich Nietzsche uncovered over a century ago. The very act of helping can secretly breed hatred, resentment, and ultimate betrayal. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on why the people you save are the exact ones who will eventually destroy you. If you want to understand the invisible power dynamics controlling your relationships, make sure to subscribe and stay until the very end. The final lesson will completely change how you help others forever. Let's start with the most uncomfortable truth about human nature, a dark reality that Friedrich Nietzsche understood better than almost anyone else. We are taught from childhood that helping others is the ultimate virtue. We are told that if you lift someone up, they will love you for it forever. But Nietzsche looked at this idealistic view and saw a hidden, uncomfortable underbelly. He realized something deeply disturbing. The person who receives a massive favor doesn't always feel love. Very often, they feel a quiet, simmering resentment. Why does this happen? Because every time you step in to save someone, you aren't just giving them a gift. You are giving them a psychological debt. And in the human psyche, an unpaid debt doesn't just sit there peacefully. It festers. When you help someone in a profound way, whether you are bailing them out financially, carrying them through a severe mental breakdown, or handing them a massive career opportunity, you instantly shift the invisible power dynamic between you. In that exact moment, the unspoken message is crystal clear. You are the powerful savior, and they are the helpless victim. You become the one who has, and they become the one who desperately needs. For a fragile ego, this is an absolutely unbearable humiliation. When they look at you, they no longer see a friend. They see a walking, breathing reminder of their own inadequacy. They see their own weakness staring right back at them. And because the human mind will do absolutely anything to protect its ego from feeling inferior, that initial spark of gratitude quickly mutates into a deep, unspoken tension. They begin to quietly hate you, not for what you did, but for what you represent. This is the brutal paradox of charity that nobody wants to admit. It is the exact moment your kindness becomes the very weapon they will eventually use against you. Let's dig deeper into the invisible humiliation of being saved. On the surface, stepping in to help looks like the ultimate act of nobility. But beneath the surface, for the person receiving that help, it triggers a devastating internal monologue. Unconsciously, their brain whispers toxic lies. I wasn't capable. I am entirely dependent. I am fundamentally inferior. Friedrich Nietzsche built much of his philosophy around the will to power, the deep primal human drive to feel strong, autonomous, and in control of our own destiny. When you swoop in to rescue someone during their darkest, most vulnerable moment, you violently disrupt that will to power. You become the living, breathing witness to their absolute lowest point. You saw them when they were broken. You saw them when they couldn't stand on their own 2 feet. And here's the brutal psychological twist. Most people cannot stand the idea that someone else has seen their profound vulnerability. They don't just want to move on from their weakness. They want to erase the evidence that it ever existed. And you are the evidence. You are the walking reminder of the day they failed. So what do they do to protect their fragile ego? They reject the source of their discomfort. They cut you out of the picture. They rewrite the history of your friendship to make you the villain simply because your existence reminds them of the time they needed saving. Have you ever noticed someone suddenly pulling away right after you went out of your way to support them? Drop a comment below if you've experienced this exact dynamic, because it is far more common than you think. They aren't pulling away because they can't handle the mirror you unintentionally became. At first, the gratitude is real. When you first pull someone out of the fire, their tears are genuine. Their thank you comes straight from the heart. But here is the dark psychological mechanism that nobody warns you about. Gratitude has a strict expiration date. As the weeks, months, or even years go by, if the help continues, that beautiful feeling of thankfulness slowly morphs into something incredibly heavy. It becomes an emotional chain. Every time you check in on them, every time you offer another solution, the invisible ledger of what they owe you grows larger. And human beings absolutely despise feeling indebted. If they cannot repay you fairly, if they don't have the money, the emotional capacity, or the status to balance the scales, they start to drown in a toxic cocktail of embarrassment, guilt, and profound inferiority. But the human ego is incredibly clever at protecting itself. It cannot handle sitting with the agonizing guilt of being a perpetual burden. So, it finds a pressure release valve. That valve is resentment. To stop feeling guilty for taking from you, their brain has to convince them that you actually deserve to be resented. They start looking for flaws in your character. They magnify your minor mistakes. They convince themselves that you only help them to show off, or to control them, or to feel superior. By turning you into the bad guy, they finally get to feel like the victim, and victims don't owe anyone anything. It is a brilliant, tragic psychological defense mechanism. Have you ever felt someone's attitude shift from warm appreciation to cold distance after you helped them too much? Let me know in the comments if you've seen this slow fade happen in your own life. It's painful, but understanding this mechanism is the first step to breaking the cycle. They rewrite the narrative in their head until they are the ones who were wronged. This isn't just jealousy. It is pure psychological survival. Now, let's talk about the invisible scale that governs every single relationship in your life. Whether you realize it or not, human connections are built on a delicate, unspoken equilibrium. There is a constant, subtle exchange of power. But what happens when you constantly give? When you are always the one providing the time, the money, the emotional support, or the golden opportunities? You might think you are just being generous, but psychologically, you are accidentally placing yourself on a pedestal. And the other person? They are forced to step down. Even if your intentions are completely pure, even if you explicitly tell them, "I don't care about the money, just pay me back whenever you can." The power dynamic has fundamentally shifted. You are now the benefactor. They are the beneficiary. And here is the brutal truth about human nature. Absolutely nobody likes feeling inferior. Nobody enjoys sitting in the subordinate seat, constantly looking up at the person who holds their lifeline. It eats away at their dignity day by day. It makes them feel incredibly small, like a child who can never grow up. So when the weight of this massive imbalance becomes too heavy to carry, what do? Do they step up and match your energy? Rarely. Instead, a much darker instinct takes over. Some people would rather completely destroy the relationship than accept a permanently subordinate position. It sounds incredibly cruel, but it is a deeply ingrained human survival tactic. If they can't rise to your level, they will drag you down to theirs. They will cut the cord, burn the bridge, and walk away into the unknown, just to reclaim the illusion of power and control. Have you ever had a friendship something massive for them? That wasn't an accident. That was the invisible scale breaking. Let's uncover a silent, deadly killer of relationships. Quiet jealousy. Sometimes your help doesn't just create debt, it highlights something even more dangerous. It highlights the massive gap in status between you. If you are more financially stable, more emotionally disciplined, or simply more successful, your generosity becomes a blinding mirror. And not everyone has the stomach to look into that mirror. When you hand them a lifeline, they aren't just seeing your kindness, they are seeing their own failure reflected back at them. Instead of using your help as a ladder to rise above their circumstances, some people choose the path of least resistance. They decide it's much easier to smash the mirror than to actually fix their reflection. Instead of thanking you, they belittle you. Instead of admiring your success, they hyper-focus on your minor flaws. They start whispering behind your back, spreading rumors, or criticizing your character to anyone who will listen. Friedrich Nietzsche called this resentment. It's a fascinating psychological phenomenon where the weak, entirely unable to match the power or success of the strong, transform their own powerlessness into a twisted sense of moral superiority. They convince themselves that you aren't actually a good person. They tell themselves you're arrogant or fake, or that your success is just dumb luck. By painting you as the bad guy, they protect their own fragile self-esteem. It is a T-past. Do me a huge favor and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Sometimes just knowing you aren't crazy is the greatest relief in the world. Now, let's address the heaviest burden you're carrying right now: the guilt. When someone you saved turns around and betrays you, your first instinct is to interrogate yourself. You replay every conversation, every text message, every favor, asking, "What did I do wrong? Did I give too much? Did I say the wrong thing? Was I too arrogant?" Stop right there. You need to hear this loud and clear. You are not the problem. The betrayal you experienced is not a reflection of your mistakes. It is a glaring reflection of their internal chaos. Friedrich Nietzsche understood that the human ego is an incredibly fragile, volatile thing. We walk around pretending to be rational, logical beings, but beneath the surface we are driven by deep, primal insecurities. When you help someone, you are introducing a massive shock to their system. You are forcing them to confront their own lack of independence. The emotional debt you inadvertently created is simply too heavy for their psychological shoulders to carry. So, when they lash out, when they cut you off, or when they spread lies about you, it is not born out of pure, calculated malice. It is born out of sheer, unadulterated inner discomfort. They are suffocating under the weight of their own inadequacy, and you are the only way out. They have to destroy the mirror to stop seeing their own flaws. This is the hardest pill to swallow, but it is also the most liberating. Their betrayal was never really about you. It was a desperate, clumsy attempt to save their own fragile identity. You were simply a catalyst for their own unresolved issues. You showed up with an open heart, and they reacted with a closed mind. That is their journey, not yours. If you've been carrying the blame for someone else's toxic reaction, take a deep breath and let that guilt go right now. Drop a 100 in the comments if you are finally ready to release that weight and stop blaming yourself for their inability to handle the truth. So, where does this leave us? If helping is so dangerous, if it so often leads to betrayal and resentment, should we just stop? Should we build walls around our hearts and never lift a finger for anyone again? Absolutely not. A life without helping is a life without connection. But here is Nietzsche's most important unspoken lesson. We must learn to help differently. The goal is to help without creating dependency. You must help in a way that makes the other person fundamentally stronger, not more indebted to you. This requires a massive shift in how you operate. Instead of swooping in to solve their problems for them, you need to get them involved in the solution. Don't just hand them a fish, and don't just teach them how to fish. Make them walk to the lake and cast the line themselves. Instead of giving without limits until you are completely drained, you must set clear, unbreakable boundaries. Stop trying to be their savior. True power isn't about rescuing someone from their struggles. It's about enabling them to develop the strength so they no longer need rescuing. When you shift your focus from saving them to empowering them, you completely neutralize the toxic power dynamic. They no longer feel inferior because you are treating them as a capable equal. The debt is replaced by mutual respect. This is the ultimate hack to human relationships. You get to remain generous and kind, but you completely protect yourself from the trap of breeding resentment. Have you ever tried setting a boundary with someone you were helping, only to see the dynamic instantly improve? Let me know your experiences below, because mastering this balance is the key to keeping your peace while still being a good person. Let's translate this heavy philosophy into raw, actionable reality. How do you actually protect yourself from this brutal dynamic in your daily life? You need to adopt 5 unbreakable principles starting today. Number 1, never help just to be liked. If your generosity is just a covert contract to buy someone's affection, you are setting yourself up for deep resentment. Number 2, never expect eternal gratitude. Human beings are naturally forgetful and incredibly self-absorbed. The exact moment you expect a lifelong payoff for a single favor, you're handing them total power over your emotions. Number 3, never remind them of what you've done. Bringing up past favors doesn't make them feel grateful. It makes them feel like a debtor trapped in a ruthless collections agency. It breeds instant, burning hostility. Number 4, only help if you are completely prepared to receive absolutely nothing in return. If the thought of them never paying you back keeps you awake at night, do not give the money. Give only what you can comfortably afford to lose without a second thought. Number 5, and perhaps the most crucial rule of all, never give to the point of unbalancing the relationship. Keep the scales relatively even. If you are always the endless giver and they are always the endless taker, you aren't building a friendship, you're building a hostage situation. True emotional maturity is realizing that you can give freely from your heart while simultaneously accepting that not everyone has the psychological capacity to carry what you are offering. You cannot force someone to be grateful, and you certainly cannot save people who are deeply committed to their own victimhood. Which of these 5 rules do you struggle with the most? Let me know in the comments below, because mastering these boundaries is the ultimate key to protecting your peace. Once you internalize these rules, you will never feel used again. Here is the final truth that separates the strong from the weak, and it will save you a lifetime of unnecessary pain. Strong people appreciate help. Weak people experience it as a direct threat to their identity. This isn't a hard and fast rule that applies to every single human being on the planet, but it is a deeply common, undeniable pattern in human psychology. A person with a strong, secure ego sees your help for what it truly is, a temporary bridge to get them over a difficult gap. They accept it with grace, they use it to move forward, and they pay it back with loyalty and genuine respect. But a person with a fragile, insecure ego sees your help as a spotlight shining directly on their inadequacies. To them, your generosity feels like an attack. It feels like you are proving that they are not enough. And because they cannot handle that feeling, they must destroy the source of the light. Understanding this fundamental difference is the ultimate shield against betrayal. It allows you to stop taking their reactions personally. When you see someone turn on you after you've given them everything, you won't feel heartbroken anymore. You will feel clarity. You will realize that their betrayal was never about your kindness. It was about their inability to handle their own weakness. The next time you feel the urge to help someone, pause and ask yourself, are they looking for a hand up, or are they looking for a crutch? Are they building their own strength, or are they trying to outsource their survival to you? Helping isn't saving. Loving isn't forgetting yourself. Giving isn't sacrificing your own dignity. Sometimes the greatest wisdom you can offer another human being is simply letting them learn on their own, even if it means watching them stumble. If this video resonated with you, it's probably because you've been in this exact situation before. You gave your all and you got hurt. But now you have the tools to protect your energy. If you want more deep dives into human psychology, the brutal philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, and the invisible power dynamics that control our lives, make sure you subscribe right now. Understanding the human soul is the only way to truly take back control of your life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.